a small forgotten village, hidden beneath a canopy of ever-present mist, lived a girl named Isabelle. She was known far and wide for her grace and beauty, though not for her wealth. Her father, once a prosperous merchant, had fallen victim to misfortune. Ships laden with exotic goods were lost to the sea, and fires had ravaged his storehouses. The world, it seemed, had turned its back on them. Now they resided in a crumbling cottage at the edge of the village, scraping by with what little they had left. Isabelle spent her days tending to their small garden, her once soft hands now calloused by work. The villagers whispered about her beauty that never seemed to fade, about her eyes that carried a sadness beyond her years. Many suitors had come, but Isabelle refused them all, bound by loyalty to her father and a desire for something more than the mundane life the village offered. She yearned for adventure, unaware of the horror that awaited her just beyond the forest's edge. One cold, unforgiving day, her father set out once more to trade the last of their goods, hoping to salvage what remained of his fortune. Days passed without word from him, and Isabelle grew anxious. Then, one stormy evening, he returned, but not as she had expected. His clothes were tattered, his eyes hollow, and he carried with him a single perfect rose. He told Isabelle of a grand castle hidden deep in the forest, where he had found shelter after losing his way. The castle had seemed abandoned, but food and warmth had been mysteriously provided. On his way out, he had plucked the rosé from the garden, thinking of Isabelle. That, he said, was when the bust appeared, a towering creature with the body of a man and the head of a wolf, his voice like thunder. The beast had accused him of theft, demanding his life in exchange for the stolen rose. Terrified, her father had begged for mercy, and the beast had granted it, but at a cost. Isabelle must come to live with him in the castle, or he would return to claim her father's life. Isabelle's heart sank, but she loved her father too much to let him suffer for her sake. Without hesitation, she agreed to go. The journey to the castle was fraught with fear and uncertainty. The forest seemed alive, its ancient trees whispering dark secrets as Isabelle rode deeper into its heart. When she finally reached the castle, it loomed before her like a monstrous skeleton, its blackened towers piercing the sky. Vines, thick with thorns, crawled up the crumbling walls. The gates, rusted and heavy, groaned as they opened on their own, as if some unseen force had been expecting her. Inside, the castle was eerily silent. The air was thick with the scent of decay, and shadows clung to every corner like spiders weaving a web. Yet, there was a strange, haunting beauty about the place. The grand chandeliers, though dimmed by dust, sparkled faintly in the dying light. The faded tapestries hinted at a time of opulence long past. As Isabelle wandered through the halls, she felt eyes upon her, but when she turned, there was nothing. No servants, no inhabitants. Only her and the silence, and the creeping dread that followed her like a shadow. It wasn't long before she met him, the beast. He stood at the end of the dining hall, his massive frame silhouetted by the faint glow of the fire. His face was hidden in shadow, but she could see his eyes, glowing with an unnatural light, burning with a hunger that chilled her to the bone. His voice, when he spoke, rumbled through the stone walls. "You are mine now." Isabelle recoiled, her heart pounding, but the beast did not move toward her. Instead, he gestured to the feast laid out before her. "Eat," he growled. "You are my guest." The meals were elaborate, though cold, and each evening they dined together in silence. The beast, though monstrous in form, was not unkind. He never raised his hand to her, nor did he try to frighten her. But there was something lurking beneath his exterior, something darker than his appearance. Isabelle could feel it in the way his eyes followed her, in the tension that hummed through the air whenever they were alone. Days passed, and Isabelle began to explore the castle. It was a labyrinth of forgotten rooms and twisting corridors, each more ominous than the last. The grand hallways were lined with portraits of grim-faced men and women, their eyes following her as she passed. In one chamber, she found a piano that played itself when she drew near, its haunting melody echoing through the empty halls. In another, she discovered a garden, overgrown and wild, the once beautiful flowers now twisted into grotesque shapes. The more she explored, the more the castle seemed to shift around her. Doors that were once open were now locked, corridors twisted in ways that made no sense. At night, she heard whispers, soft at first like the wind, but growing louder, more insistent. They called her name, beckoning her deeper into the heart of the castle. And then there were the dreams, nightmares of darkness and fire, of a woman's face, pale and twisted in agony. In her dreams, the beast was not a prince cursed by fate, but a creature born of evil, whose heart beat with malice. One evening, after a particularly unsettling dream, the beast presented Isabelle with a gift. It was an ornate silver key, its surface tarnished with age. His voice trembled as he handed it to her. "This key opens the door to my past. You must never use it. If you do, you will find things you wish you hadn't." His warning sent a chill down Isabelle's spine, but curiosity gnawed at her. She could feel the weight of the key in her pocket, cold and heavy. That night, she could barely sleep, the temptation overwhelming her. She had to know the truth. The next day, while the beast was away, Isabelle ventured into the darkest part of the castle. The corridors twisted and turned until she came upon a small, unassuming door at the far end of the hall. Her heart raced as she slid the key into the lock and turned it. The door creaked open, revealing a dimly lit chamber. Inside was a mirror, old and cracked, with a black frame carved with strange symbols. At its base lay a figure, a woman, her body shriveled and contorted, her eyes wide with eternal horror. The enchantress. Isabelle approached the mirror, her breath catching in her throat, as she gazed into it. The reflection that stared back at her was not her. Oh, it was the beast, but not as she knew him. This was not the hulking figure with the wolf-like face. No, this was a man, a prince, yes, but with eyes like black pits and a grin that sent shivers down her spine. The mirror whispered to her, revealing the truth. The beast had never been cursed. He had been born a monster, a creature of darkness who fed on the souls of the innocent. The enchantress had tried to stop him, but he had trapped her in this room, feeding on her life force to sustain his own. He was not seeking redemption. He was seeking a new victim. Isabelle's blood ran cold as the truth sank in. She turned to flee, but the door slammed shut behind her. The beast stood there, his form more monstrous than ever before, his eyes burning with an evil she had not seen before. "Now you know," he growled, his voice dripping with malice. "You were never here to save me. You were here to take her place." The castle itself seemed to come alive as Isabelle ran through its twisting corridors. The wall shifted, The floor crumbled beneath her feet, and the air was thick with the stench of decay. She could hear the beast behind her, his heavy footsteps echoing in the dark. Just as she reached the garden, she saw the rose, the same one her father had taken. It glowed under its glass dome, its petals shimmering with an unnatural light. Without thinking, Isabelle smashed the dome and seized the rose. A scream pierced the night, a sound of agony and rage, of something ancient and evil unraveling. The beast fell to his knees, his body disintegrating into shadows. But as he vanished, a cold laugh filled the air. Isabelle looked down at the rose in her hands, its petals withering and blackening before her eyes. Her skin began to pale, her fingers curling and twisting into grotesque shapes. The curse had never been his to break. It was hers now. Isabelle would become the new beast, trapped in the castle for eternity, waiting for the next soul to wander into its depths. And they would. For the castle always called out to the lost, the curious and the foolish. And the beast always waited. Thank you for joining us in the world of Twilight Fables. If you enjoyed this tale and want to hear more stories like this, please subscribe and hit the notification bell for more.